Moving on to item number 7, first reading Commission Policy 2, Publications, Commissioner and Administrative Procedures, Regulations, and Policy Committee Chairman David McNinch for possible action. The Commission will have a first reading and may take action on the committee's recommendation to repeal Commission Policy 2, Sale of Publications. The policy is outdated and redundant with the public record fee schedule and requirements applicable to executive branch agencies limiting fees. Commissioner McNinch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the committee, at our last committee meeting, which was actually just prior to our last commission meeting, we did review policy 2, and I think that pretty straightforward. The committee felt that it was a little bit outdated. Things have changed. There's the availability of this information, websites, social media type stuff. Things have changed, and I don't think that the concerns that might have prompted the development of that policy when it was developed and subsequently amended, I don't think that those concerns are there. You've got public, FOIA type things that are out there. The laws are strong in terms of providing information to the public, and the agency has a strong conservation program, conservation education program where this stuff is out, and the committee basically felt that the policy wasn't needed to provide information to the public, maybe in the same manner that existed when it was first put into place. So, with that, I think the committee's recommendation to the commission is to repeal.
Thank you, Commissioner McNinch. Any questions? Commissioner Drew.
Yeah, Commissioner McNinch, or I guess any of the other committee members could answer this, but I'm just curious, with the recommendation to repeal versus maybe citing some of the public record fee schedules and the requirements from the executive branch, is the thought that those things change frequently enough that it would be hard to keep a policy updated, and it's just better to clear the policy off the books and cite those when things get requested, or was there discussion on that?
There was real light discussion on in terms of the fee type stuff, but certainly it's an issue. We can't update it often enough. Those things get antiquated. If you miss the mark, then it creates issues. So it wasn't a major discussion point, but we just felt that the way that the department shares its information with the public now, what was driving this, the need to put out a fee schedule for those things. Those are all things that are required by law anyway. So there's no need to be driven by a policy.
Commissioner Drew.
And I would assume, and you know what they say about assuming, but Tony or Jack, my assumption is that the department's comfortable with the guidelines that you have in place administratively and don't feel there's a need for a policy from this commission at this time.
That's correct.
And that was expressed during the committee meeting from staff. Yes.
Further questions for the commission?
So I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify, I'm sorry. You want to repeal, you're recommending to repeal this because it's a bit redundant, basically, and it's kind of housekeeping that doesn't need to be in place because we have other structure or infrastructure in place to make sure we have appropriate guidelines.
Yes, that's basically the premise behind the recommendation.
Further questions? Hearing none, this is an action item, or no, it is not an action item, is it? Yes. It is an action item. It is an action item. I'll take it out for public comment in Reno.
No comment in Reno, Mr. Chairman.
Public comment in Elko.
No comment in Elko.
Public comment in Las Vegas. Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Drew.
I would make a motion to move Commission Policy 2 publications from first reading to a second reading at the next meeting with a recommendation to repeal.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Drew and a second by Commissioner McNinch to move on to a second reading with a recommendation of repealing. Call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimous 8-0. Moving on to item number 8, second reading Commission Policy 10, Wildlife Heritage Tags and Vendors. Commission Chairman and Wildlife Heritage Committee Chairman Grant Wallace for possible action. The commission will conduct a second reading of Policy 10, Wildlife Heritage Tags and Vendors, and may make action to approve recommendations from the policy's first reading. We heard this at the August meeting and made some changes to it, and I see them here in writing now for the final changes. Are there any questions or? Commissioner Drew.
Yeah, just one item, and I had suggested putting sealed bids back in, I think at the August meeting, and it's highlighted there. And then it looked like there was some discussion in Washoe County about why that had been reinserted. And Maureen, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is if something happens with a vendor, or for some reason there's not enough vendors, our only other recourse to sell one of those tags would be through sealed bids. So that was kind of my logic in making sure we maintained the sealed bid process in there. I'm not looking to eliminate vendors or anything like that, just making sure we have redundancy. Am I reading that right? I didn't completely understand the public comment in Washoe County, but I just want to make sure my take is accurate.
Commissioner Drew, your take is accurate. If you look at section, I think it's new subsection 7, it goes into the options, the commission will review all proposals, select vendors to auction the respective tags. If no proposals are received, the commission may authorize other organizations within or outside Nevada to auction the tag. And if no acceptable organization is found to auction, it could be a sealed bid process. So it is a tool in the toolbox, but it's not high on the list. We've never had issues with finding organizations to put proposals in. But what your suggestion did was just a little housekeeping that supports that section 7.
Thank you, Maureen. Further questions from the commission? Hearing none, I'll take it out for public comment in Reno.
No comment on what we heard.
All right, did I hear no?
The speaker mic, we could not hear Maureen at all.
So just to clarify, my question was to make sure that the sealed bid is essentially a backup option, that vendors would be the first option and sealed bid would be more if we can't find a vendor or if something happens at the 11th hour. And Maureen basically reinforced that that was in fact the case.
No comment in Reno, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And did I hear a no comment in Elko?
No comment, Elko.
Okay, public comment in Las Vegas. Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. This is the second reading. I'd be looking for a motion for approval. Commissioner Drew.
I would move to approve Commission Policy 10 as presented to us today, as amended at the August meeting with no further changes.
I have a motion by Commissioner Drew and a second by Commissioner Valentine to approve the second reading of Commission Policy 10 as presented. And I'll call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimous. Item number 9, second reading, Commission Policy 11, Wildlife Heritage Grants. Commission Chairman and Wildlife Heritage Committee Chairman Grant Wallace for possible action. The commission will conduct a second reading of Commission Policy 11, Wildlife Heritage Grants, and may take action to approve the recommendations from the policy's first reading. I do not believe there were any changes from the August meeting on this one.
I think the only change was putting you in as chairman.
Any questions from the commission? Hearing none, this is an action item. I'll take it out for public comment in Reno, please.
No comment in Reno.
Public,
No comment in Reno, Mr. Chairman.
public comment in Elko,
No comment, Elko.
and public comment in Las Vegas. Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. Any further questions from the commission? Commissioner Hubbs?
Yes, I have a question. Just in regard to policy 10 as it relates to policy 11, and trying to understand a little bit better. So the heritage tags are auctioned each year, and just the funds from the auction in and of itself fund the grants that are awarded through the heritage grant program. Is that correct?
Yes.
And is there additional funds coming into the grant program as well?
Yes.
And where do those come from?
There would be, I'm trying to think about that for a minute. There's the interest. Each year we spend the 75% of the, maybe Maureen can help me out on this. I don't have those right on the top of my head.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maureen Hellinger, Nevada Department of Wildlife. There's other funds that come in through Partnership in Wildlife, through the draw process. The Silver State tags, I believe, go into the Heritage Fund also, that then are distributed through those grants.
That's all I have.
Anything further from the commission? You looking for a motion on this? This is the second reading of this one as well.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve Commission Policy Number 11 as presented.
I second.
Who wants to be the second? I have a motion by Commissioner Johnston and a second by Commissioner Drew to approve the second reading of Commission Policy 11 as presented. I'll call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimous. I think at this time, we'll take a 10-minute break and maybe see if we can check out the mic here and see if we can figure out what may be the issue. And we'll come back at 11 o'clock.